Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving straight into the invisible mechanics of web authentication. We are going to finally clear up that pervasive, industry-wide confusion between cookies, sessions, and JWTs. So let's just get right into it. By the time we're done here, you'll know exactly how these technologies work, how they differ, and most importantly, how they actually work together in the real world.
Think about it for a second. You log into a banking portal, a shopping site, and maybe a cloud API today. From your perspective as a user, it feels exactly the same, right? You punch in your credentials once, and boom, you magically stay logged in. But behind the scenes, we're about to unmask 3 totally different ways a system is actually remembering who you are. One system drops a cookie, another creates a session, and the last one hands you a JWT. So if the user experience is identical, why are developers constantly arguing over which one is faster, more secure, or just better for modern apps?
Well, here's our roadmap to figure that out. We've got the login illusion, demystifying sessions and cookies, and unpacking JWTs. Then, we'll dive into stateful versus stateless architectures, attack vectors, and wrap up with real-world design. Let's get started. Part 1. The login illusion. Before we compare anything at all, we have to remember one absolute fundamental rule. Authentication happens first, always. Whether you're using a password, OAuth, passkeys, whatever, the server has to verify your identity first. Only after you successfully authenticate does the application decide how it's going to maintain that logged-in state. That memory of your login, that is exactly where our 3 technologies enter the picture.
Moving to Part 2, Sessions and Cookies Demystified. It is definitely time to bust a massive industry myth right now. A lot of folks out there treat cookies and sessions like they're competitors fighting for the exact same job. They absolutely aren't. We need to clearly separate what it means to store data versus what it means to store state.
Look at the distinction here. It's super clear. A cookie, it's literally just a storage mechanism sitting right there in your browser. It just holds small pieces of data. A session, on the other hand, is the actual authentication state, and that lives securely over on the server. Maybe in a database, maybe in memory. They solve completely different problems. Let's walk through how traditional server-side sessions actually play out. You log in, and the server generates a unique, cryptographically random value called a Session ID. This is built by a highly secure, unguessable random number generator. And here's the kicker. That ID contains 0 actual user information. The browser just hangs onto this random identifier, usually stuffing it inside a cookie. So, for every single future request, your browser sends that Session ID back. The server gets it, does the heavy lifting by looking it up in its database, loads your user info, and finally processes the request. But what happens if an attacker snags that Session ID cookie? Well, they can completely hijack your account, because that ID literally represents your authenticated session. And that is exactly why websites fiercely protect these cookies using built-in browser attributes. You slap HttpOnly on there, and suddenly malicious JavaScript can't read it, drastically mitigating cross-site scripting. Secure forces it over HTTPS, and SameSite limits cross-site requests to block forgery attacks. These controls don't encrypt the cookie, they just lock down an attacker's reach. All right, Section 3, JWTs and stateless authentication. We're going to pivot entirely away from those server databases for a minute and look at how JSON Web Tokens handle identity using cryptography. So instead of generating a random ID and keeping everything in a central database, the server creates a digitally signed JWT packed with your authenticated claims and just hands it right back to the client. When your browser makes its next request, it sends that token along. The server receives it, and rather than hitting a database to look you up, it locally verifies the digital signature, checks claims like expiration and issuer, and processes the request. We call this stateless authentication. Your authenticated identity travels natively with every single request.
I need to throw out a massive warning for developers here, though. JWT payloads are generally readable by anyone who gets their hands on the token. Do not let that digital signature fool you. It guarantees integrity, not confidentiality. You should only ever include necessary claims in a JWT. Never, ever embed sensitive stuff like passwords or confidential personal info directly inside that payload. Seriously, just don't do it.
Section 4, Stateful versus Stateless Architecture. You know, the core battle in our industry isn't actually cookies versus JWTs, it's the deep architectural divide between a stateful design and a stateless design.
Think about the actual engineering trade-offs we're making here.
On one hand, stateful server sessions demand a database lookup and shared memory, like Redis. But because the server holds the state, you get immediate revocation. Want to boot a user? Just delete the session. Boom, done. On the other hand, stateless JWTs trade that database hit for cryptographic verification. That allows for brilliant independent scaling across microservices since servers don't share memory. But it introduces really complex challenges, like trying to revoke a token before it expires, plus managing all the key rotation.
To quote the source material directly here, stateless doesn't automatically mean better. It simply means the architecture handles authentication differently. Going stateless with JWTs isn't some magic bullet that solves all your scaling problems. You're literally just swapping one set of engineering headaches for another. You have to choose what fits your system. Moving on to Section 5, Security and Attack Vectors. Let's flip the script for a second and look at all of this through the eyes of an attacker trying to pull off a heist. Where are the actual vulnerabilities?
This breakdown perfectly aligns our three technologies and clarifies exactly what an attacker is up against. Cookies handle browser storage and rely entirely on transport security and attributes. They have no inherent crypto. Sessions maintain state on the server, protected by highly unpredictable IDs. And JWTs carry claims, locked down by digital signatures. Each one solves a very specific piece of the security puzzle.
So look, if you're trying to hack this, you know you're probably not going to forge a JWT key signature because you don't have the signing key, and good luck guessing a cryptographically secure session ID. Modern systems almost never fail because the underlying math is broken. They fail because credentials get mishandled. Attackers are going straight for cross-site scripting, CSRF, session hijacking, token theft, or just exploiting weak client-side configs. Cryptography is just your foundation. A secure implementation is what actually completes the defense. Let's bring this all together in Section 6, Real-World Authentication Design. The absolute best, most robust systems out there, they don't just blindly pick one of these technologies and ignore the rest. They orchestrate a master plan using all of them. It is a total myth that JWTs are here to completely replace sessions. That's just a trend-chasing mindset. Reality check. Good system design asks, what problem are we actually trying to solve? Traditional banks thrive on server-side sessions with lockdown cookies because they absolutely need strict, immediate revocation. Modern REST APIs, they heavily leverage JWTs for seamless scaling. And massive enterprise platforms, they frequently combine OAuth, JWTs, secure cookies, and centralized session state all at once. I'm going to leave you with this provocative thought to chew on for your own projects right now. Look at your architecture. Are you just chasing developer trends and assuming stateless is always better? Or are you architecting the perfect, deliberate blend of storage, state, and cryptography to actually secure your users? The next time you pop open those dev tools, remember these aren't competing technologies. They are the fundamental building blocks of secure system design. Thanks for joining me for this explainer.